Equity Lifestyles is the property owner here at Mid-Florida Lakes. This is a 55-plus mobile home community or manufactured home community, depending upon how you like to look at it. And the Homeowners Association, which I'm a member of the board of directors on the Homeowners Association and have been tasked with moderating this meeting. My name is Mike Marks, M-A-R-K-S. A few housekeeping items. First, there is no smoking in the building. Okay, this is a smoke-free clubhouse here. The bathrooms are right. You see that window there that's you can look through, and there's a brightly lit hallway behind it. The bathrooms are straight down there, about 50 feet to your right-hand side, down the corridor a little bit. Feel free to just go whenever you need to. And so go to the bathroom. And we have the room here until 9 o'clock tonight. So wherever we are at 9 o'clock, we need to stop. Okay, and we're hoping that if things go well, and we can go down through these questions and concerns and have both sides of the issue address things, and we don't have a lot of consternation, that we'll actually be able to get a lot of good information transfer from the people on our panel to you, and then you'll be free to make up your mind. If you haven't already made it up, you'll be able to make it up or change it or whatever you have in mind. But it's an information transfer, okay? It's not cheering on one side or the other. Now, the county is considering an application for a peat mine that will go into Goose Prairie. Goose Prairie, the location of Goose Prairie will be shown on projected maps as well as the 4 maps up here. So that will be part of the projection. The county person that's here will tell you how the county reviews this whole process and what it takes to get, say, what is it, a permit, ultimately to proceed. The county is not the end of the line as far as the government's concerned. If, big if, the county approves, it goes on to additional governmental offices, both state and federal. And the county representative here will be able to describe that process as well. Then we have people who are proponents of having the peat mine, and they are located on this table, on this side of the room. And those in opposition to the mine are located over on this side of the room. The type of meeting is going to be a panel meeting. By that I mean there have been solicitations made by us to have questions sent in that express concerns of people in the area about this peat mine. And the concerns, you can imagine that we got a lot of questions coming into us through email and dropping off notes in envelopes at the front office here at Mid-Florida Lakes. The questions have been sifted through by members of our homeowners association board, and they tried to categorize them into broad areas of concern, and then subcategorize them into specific things within those broader areas. And we'll try to keep it somewhat organized in how we present it. Basically, when we get to the question and answer thing, I'll read a question from that list of questions, and by the way, I'll be also reading that list of questions and projecting it on the screen for you before, and we get to the questions. Actually, you'll know what they all are. And if you have a concern that you don't see being addressed in any of these 10 questions that we have, these 10 talking points, if you want to call them that, then we have some people at the back along that table. If you just go back there, you will be able to get their help in writing your question. They will try then to categorize it and sort it so that we don't have duplicate questions. And we want to be able to answer as many real concerns as we can without having a lot of duplication of questions. The panel members are the following. Mr. Rick Hartenstein is a senior planner with Lake County. His offices are over in Tavares. He's been following this process basically since its beginning. Okay, and he has a very he's been with the county for 28 years. He's done all kinds of tasks in the county, anything from inspection of sites and so on. Now he's in the planning part of it. Then we have the proponent side. We have Stephen Cook. I've asked the people on the panels. Stephen is in the proponent side. Stephen, stand up. Okay, I've asked each person to write a little biography for me so that I can just read it, so you know who they are. Stephen Cook is a Florida native, married to Vicki Crecelius since 1977. Together they have 2 children and 3 grandchildren. Son David Cook is a pastor at the town of Osterville on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Daughter Jacqueline Wolf is a first-grade teacher, currently taking time off to care for her child, a new child. Together with his father-in-law, they founded C&C Peat Company, Incorporated, in 1981. The family-owned company has operated in Lake County for 33 years. Mr. Cook has an engineering degree from Valencia College. He volunteers as a member of the Florida Baptist Disaster Relief Organization and utilizes his company equipment to provide storm debris removal and logistics support to disaster victims. Okay. Next is Cheryl DeCrenza. Hey, I got it. Okay. Okay. Cheryl has 26 years of combined experience in the environmental, regulatory, and private consulting arenas. After 10 years with Volusia, Dade, and Duval counties, she has been practicing in the private sector supporting government and private entities. She lives in Central Florida and has been employed with basically Kleinfeld, in Lake County for 20 years. As an environmental scientist, her range of ecological project experience has included the purchase, environmental due diligence and risk assessment, compliance evaluations, local local government, please, hold it down. Local government, state, federal permitting, entitlement acquisitions, wetland delineations, and biotech assessments of wetlands, mitigation design and permitting, and endangered wildlife permitting, and protected species recovery and relocations. Ms. DeCrenza has participated in the review and preparation of land development regulations for regulatory and private entities, provided technical support to legislative rulemaking actions, and provided expert witness testimony for land use, entitlement hearings, state permit challenges, and environmental civil suits. And next is Glenn Storch. Okay. Or no, I'm sorry. Glenn is not next. but I'll do him anyway. I'll do it out of order. Well, Glenn is...
come on, man. Gives a shit.
Glenn, identify yourself. Okay.
Hi.
Is born in Jacksonville, Florida, and raised in Tampa. Glenn is the 7th generation of native Floridians in his family. Mr. Storch received a BA degree in political science from the University of South Florida, 1977, and a JD degree from Stetson University College of Law in 1980. After graduating from Stetson, Glenn worked as an assistant state attorney in the 18th Judicial Circuit, and later became House Counsel for the Deltona Corporation of Miami, Florida. Glenn entered private practice in 1984 and is the present owner of Glenn B. Storch, PA. The practice focuses on land use and real estate related issues. He is a member of a number of community organizations, including the Daytona Beach Rotary, the Civic League of Halifax, and Daytona Blues Festival Board. He is currently appointed to the Volusia County Smart Growth Committee, previously served as chairman of the Volusia County Beach Advisory Board, and has served his community for over 30 years on a variety of boards and committees. Now we have Dwayne Booth. Please, we'll be introducing the opponent side shortly. Just hang in there. Dwayne Booth was born and raised in Orlando, Florida, and has been hunting and fishing in Lake County from earliest memories. Dwayne attended UCF and earned his bachelor's degree in civil engineering in 1987 and his professional engineer's license in 1991. In 1993, Dwayne started working for Farner Bailey in Tavares and moved his family to Umatilla. Today, Dwayne still lives in Umatilla, is president of Booth Earn Strong and Hoyt? Okay. And still fishes many local lakes. Now, we move to the, well, you want to know who's addressing? Opponents, the opponent side. Sharon, wait a minute. Is Sharon still on? No, okay. Okay, Sharon has elected just before we started to not participate on the panel, and instead I will hand the microphone to the person who will, and she will introduce herself.
Thank you, Mike. Well, since I'm a last-minute add-on, I actually get the benefit of holding the microphone, but I won't take too long. My name is Karen Conslow, and I'm an attorney here in Central Florida. I've been practicing here for about 15 years, and I have the privilege tonight to represent Protect Goose Prairie, and I'm very pleased to be here with you all. I need to travel with you guys. You can come to all my hearings with me. Just to tell you real briefly about myself, my practice focus is land use, environmental, and government law. In fact, I'm recognized as an expert in local government law by the Florida Bar. I've been doing this, like I said, for almost 15 years. I teach in these fields, both at Barry University School of Law, and I teach at Rollins College in the land use, government, and environmental field. Again, I want to thank everyone for coming tonight, but please make sure you come out next week. Come to the Lake County Board of County Commissioners meeting. We need to see you there. And I want to again thank Mike. He has a Herculean task tonight. And I too hope we have a productive and informative meeting. Thank you all.
When is the meeting next week?
24th at 9 a.m. The meeting will start. That's the...
If I make, Mike, could I say one thing?
yeah.
My, the meeting right now is set all day, as Lake County commonly does. As of today, we did not have a set time. My paralegal is continuing to check on that. We'll disseminate the information. I'm sure Mike's checking on it too. Sharon is my point of contact, and she will email it to everyone in her email list as soon as we know the time with more certainty.
Okay, Linda Bystrack. Wave your hand. Okay, Linda is, let's see, current. Okay, Linda is a current member of Lake Soil and Water Conservation District. She's a Mid-Florida Lakes resident for 12 years. A former something member, a board member of the Lake County Water Authority, and a retired biology and chemistry teacher. It's Linda. Okay, next, Charlene Colberman. Okay. She's a past realtor and business owner, historical researcher and author, member of multiple historic societies and past VP of the Madison County Historical Society. She's a current homeowner and landlord, both in Wedgwood. And you're on the HOA there, I assume, soon too? Not on the HOA board. Okay. But Wedgwood is in Grand Island. Next is Nancy Hurlbert. Nancy retired in 2004 from a large South Florida civil engineering consulting firm as a partner and project manager for over 35 years. Her expertise was highway and subdivision design. Okay, as I mentioned before, there were questions that were submitted in advance, mostly through email, but also some by drop-off. Those questions were compiled by our HOA board members into categories and subcategories of that identify specific issues. The reason for doing this was to reduce or eliminate, as best we could, repetitive questions, asking essentially the same thing over and over again. So the questions on Sunday, all the questions that we got as of Sunday, were supplied to everyone here, both sides and to the county. And that helps them in preparing their presentations and answers. It gives them a heads up on it. Now, we did receive questions after Sunday, and those questions are being screened, and eventually they will come up here once we're finished with the first 10, which were the original questions before the cutoff date. If you don't see your concern expressed in the questions that I will be reading now, please go back to the table, and there will be people back there at the table who will help you write and categorize your questions so it can get in the queue to get answered. Some of you have already done that and have already put in questions. They're looking at those right now. But basically what we want to do again is try to eliminate duplicates and to get things sort of categorized so it all hangs together. Okay. The advanced concerns and talking points, in other words, question the same thing as a talking point, yet different viewpoints. Different people answer questions totally differently, and you might expect that tonight. But the major areas of concern were air quality, water quality and use, land use, what research studies have been done to support the application, and what is the logistics of doing mining in the area. So with that, here are the questions, the 10 questions. So just take a look at them, see if what your concern is in here. What are the health risks of breathing airborne peat dust and particulates as the peat is drying, and will noxious odors be given off? Under the water category, what will be the impact to wildlife and the aquifer, where we all get our well water, our drinking water, comes out of the aquifer. How much water will be taken from the aquifer, and for how long a period of time? There's a comprehensive plan, which I know Rick will address. And part of that comprehensive plan prohibits mining in environmentally sensitive areas. And the question here is, how can peat mining be conducted in a water recharge area? That was the question. Land use. How much land will be mined on the 1,000-acre site? And have tree removal permits been applied for? Next question, what happens after the 17-year mining ends? Who will restore the land, and how will this be done? Under research studies, has the environmental impact study been made? And if so, what has the study been made public? And if not, why not? What is the operating plan, and has it been approved? And the last category, the logistics of mining in this area. How many new employees will be hired, and can County Route 44 be eliminated from truck and employee traffic? Who will oversee and inspect the site, and will these reports be made public? Okay. Now, those were the 10 questions that we came up with out of all the questions that were submitted, and it's like a pull together into those 10 questions. Now, they will be asked one at a time, but that will happen after the county, the opponent side, and the proponent side have 15 minutes to make their presentation. Okay. We will start with the county, then the applicant, the proponent side, will have 15 minutes, and then the opponent side will have 15 minutes to make a general presentation. Now, they know what the questions are in advance, so hopefully they will have used those advanced questions and worked them into their presentations. Then, after that, we will launch into those 10 questions. And when we do those 10 questions, I will read the question. You'll hear it again. And each panel member will have an opportunity, not a requirement, but an opportunity to respond to each one of those questions. The county representative will always have the first say. He will be invited to address the question first. And then, for that particular question, one side or the other will be the first to answer, and then it will alternate back and forth. And you can imagine, when you alternate back and forth, there are going to be differences of opinion about this, and so on. And hopefully, a lot of good information will come out. And then the next question, the alternating will start with the other side, so that no one has to go first all the time. And, like I started off, I said the meeting ends at 9 o'clock. That's how long we have the room. And I think we're ready to go with Red.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be able to sit here and try and discuss some of the policies and land development regulations that are involved in the review process of this mining application. My name is Rick Hartenstein. I'm a senior planner with Lake County. I was born and raised in Lake County. I spent a spell of 6.5 years in the Navy. From there I moved back to Lake County. I wound up going to work in growth management. I've worked in code enforcement for about 9.5 years, and the rest of my 28 years has been in the planning community, working through development review and that type of thing. This isn't the only type of projects that I review. I review site plans, I review rezonings. It's all under the land development regulation criteria and the policies of the comp plan. That is where the county side is at any application that comes in. As you can see, as this process started back in 2012, there was a pre-application conference that was done where they submitted a proposal of potentially coming forward with an application to harvest the peat in the Goose Prairie wetland area. In 2014, they filed a conditional use permit application. It was found sufficient in March. The development review comments were provided to the applicant in April. It went before the Planning and Zoning Board on April 30th. And the Board of County Commissioners will hear it on June 24th. Now, as it stands right now, the process, the way that the board hearings work, there is an actual schedule at a certain point. They don't make it a time certain, but they have a section for the rezonings, conditional use permits, those type of applications. There's an actual section in the board agenda, and then those cases are structured within that portion of the meeting. And that will be when this case would be presented to the Board of County Commissioners for consideration. Once the hearing is done, if the board approves it, it moves forward through the review process with state and federal permitting, and then from there we'll come back to the county for administrative review for submitting the copies of all their state and federal permits and their operating plan, which is basically the nuts and bolts of how the whole process will be done. It structures it out in their phases, other than their conceptual plan that is set up right now that's structured with the ordinance if the board approves it. This actually gets into the fine details of the reclamation plan, the whole process, and that follows in accordance with the regulations of the approved conditional use permit and the land development regulations and comprehensive plan policies. Some of the submittal requirements and studies that had to be provided with the application for review was a hydrologic report. There were soil reports and borings that were done to identify the confining layers for the Florida aquifer, depth and thickness of peat deposits. There was an environmental report identifying threatened and endangered species. It's your flora and fauna. It addresses the impacts to species, even provides some other mitigating for adverse effects and that type of thing. They will, there have been some conditions actually established in the proposed ordinance pertaining to some other agencies that would be involved in the wildlife side of it. They have a conceptual plan that lays out the phases of where they would be mining, and they also provided a workable, environmentally sound reclamation plan as part of the application process. What we review for is consistency with the general purposes and goals of the comprehensive plan and the land development regulations. We look for potential impacts on adjacent properties. We look for potential impacts involving air quality, surface groundwater quality, and wildlife resources. There's potential impacts are identified as far as for public roads. We look at the adequacy of the reclamation plan, and upon review, a staff report is written and it is provided to the Planning and Zoning Board for consideration at a public hearing, at which point the Planning and Zoning Board, which is a recommending board to the Board of County Commissioners, based on all the facts and everything that was provided to them, they gave a recommendation of approval to bring before the Board of County Commissioners. There were some additional conditions that the board felt was necessary. They adjusted the hours of operation. The hours of operation would be from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. And they had a concern that they wanted special attention to any traffic issues. Public hearing then will go before the board, as I said, on June 24th. Some of the policies of the comp plan that we look at during the analysis, one of them was this policy here pertaining to the prohibition of mines in environmentally sensitive areas. Well, we're looking at lime deposits within the Green Swamp, the Okahonka Swamp, phosphate deposits in Lake George. All new mines are prohibited within the Wekiva River Protection Area, Study Area, and the Wekiva-Ocala Rural Protection Area. It also states that new phosphate and peat mining operations shall be prohibited in most effective recharge areas and protected recharge areas. The rest of this in this case is involved with existing mines in this policy and the excavation of borrow pits, which wouldn't apply to this application. In this review, the proposed peat mine is not in the Green Swamp or in the Okahonka Swamp. Proposed peat mine is not part of the phosphate deposits on the west side of Lake George, nor is it within the Wekiva River Protection Area, the Wekiva Study Area, or the Wekiva Ocala Rural Protection Area. So that prohibition would not apply to this application. Next step we go to is a most effective recharge area. In the comprehensive plan, it's defined as type A hydric soils. Yes, they are harvesting type A hydric soils. But here's the key. This only applies to the Wekiva Study Area. This is straight out of the comprehensive plan, the definition. So this is not located in the Wekiva Study Area, so this does not apply to this application. Next one. Then we look at protected recharge areas. This is areas with a natural potential for an average annual recharge rate to the Florida aquifer of 10 inches or greater. Next slide, please. This is from the county GIS maps. We have laid in the boundary of the lease parcel, or parcels, which is in red here. This blue line is the proposed 320 acres for mining. The colors, this light color is 0 to 4 inches of recharge. None of this proposed mining area fits within that area whatsoever. The next is 4 to 8 inches, which is this olive color. Then you move into where the potential of being a recharge area actually is, which is this darker green, which is on the outlying edges of the lease parcel on this side and up to the northwest right here. Where the actual recharge, most effective recharge area is this dark color right in here. That is outside of the boundaries of any area that's being mined. So this application is consistent with that policy. Some of the additional objectives pertaining to the wetlands, we have actual land development regulations pertaining to the protection of wetlands and water bodies. In a section of this, it does permit mining as long as it meets the state, local, and federal regulations. Next. Again, you're looking at the mining regulations that were established so that we had review criteria to evaluate an application, and during that process also set and establish conditions based on the type of mining that they were going to do. Some of the one of the policies in the comprehensive plan is to minimize impacts to wetlands outside of areas with special protection. Some of the criteria that we look at there is some of the dredge and fill activities in wetlands that would be of real concern in these areas, except for these. Water-dependent activities, such as your docks, boardwalks, things like that. If there was access that was needed to a site, anything that was needed as for internal traffic circulation, public safety, utility transmission, stormwater management areas, and mining that meets local and state federal regulations. Again, these are other criteria. This is not reviewed with this application. These are other things that would be acceptable for disturbance of wetlands. And again, this is just part of that policy. Move on to the next one. Once the board reviews the application, if, and I use that term very strongly, it's a big if. Nobody knows what's going to happen until it happens at the public hearing. That's what due process is all about. They will move forward from that point if the board approves that to go to your state agencies for their permitting, and will move from there. They have to come back to the county and present all their jurisdictional agency permits as part of their application with their operating plan. This policy was established at the adoption hearings of the 2030 comp plan. And one of the things in looking at the minutes that was discussed with this policy is they wanted to ensure that there was some additional safeguards on types of applications that came forward so that scrutiny was at a higher level in the review process. Okay. Basically what you're looking at is in 1941, this outside boundary in red is the approximate wetland area of Goose Prairie. In yellow is the area that's proposed for mining. Most of this was a lake with some hardwood islands in the center. Next one. In 1993 or 53, you can see it was slowly starting to fill up with vegetation and be overgrown. In 2011, this area shows a very degraded wetland system. It's mostly vegetation. There's been at least 2 fires, I believe, in the last 10 years out here involved with the peat bog from lightning strikes. This is what it will look like. This is their proposed reclamation plan. What they're proposing to do is harvest the peat, which is a natural resource, and in turn come behind it and restore back to the pristine biodiverse environmental ecosystem that was present in the 40s. Okay. As I previously said, if the board approves the mining conditional use permit, you're looking at state approvals, St. John's Water Management District, Department of Environmental Protection. You've got federal reviews and approvals with Environmental Protection Agency, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Then they will bring their state permits with their operation plan, meeting all the criteria from the mining ordinance and the LDRs, and submit to the county for further review of this before they can move the first shovelful. Thank you for the opportunity to at least explain the county's review process.
We've got some housekeeping to do for switching computers, so we can. Well, we got to do it.
For inviting us here this evening. As you heard earlier, I am a resident of Harbor Shores. I actually live on Lake Eustis, right around the corner from Gator Hole. So I am very concerned about this. Our main concern is that this is the wrong time and the wrong place for this project. The wrong time because we are already feeling the impact of different things that are happening out of the Dura-Stress driveway today. Right now, how many of us get stuck behind those long, flat beds that have the pilings on it, that have the bridge structures on? That is only going to increase because right now, Dura-Stress, the next slide, has gotten a contract with the Wekiva Parkway for some 23 miles of elevated roadway. They are going to be increasing traffic out of Durastress to be able to deliver these kinds of pilings and superstructures and bird slabs going east on 44 to the Wakaiva Parkway. We already suffer from that. That started about a month ago. The traffic studies that were done for this upcoming project were done back in January, so they did not take into account the increased truck traffic coming out of Durastress. Every day I drive by Durastress and they have sprinklers going in order to control dust. And I bet every single one of you here can attest to how great that works. Spraying will not keep the dust down from Durastress, and it will not keep the dust down from the peat mining. Right here are the two trucks that we just photographed this week leaving Durastress. And again, these are increasing the traffic on 44 because of the Wakaiva project. Now this is directly from the conditional use permit that the applicant has submitted. And this is the portion that deals with the traffic. And it says that the standard level of service, LOS, level of service on County Road 44 is a D. D is D out of F. So it's already on a failing roadway as far as traffic flow goes. So we're suffering from a roadway that is already failing for traffic, that we're adding additional trucks from the Durastress going to Wakaiva, and then another 12 trucks a day from this peat mining. Well, exactly, but this is one direction and then it comes back. You're absolutely right. Right now, County Road 44 is already over capacity. It's operating at 111%, i.e. that's why it is failing. This new project will make it even worse by increasing that to 117%. Peak traffic hour is 4 to 6 in the evening, when all of us are on the road coming back from our jobs, school buses. We really don't need an additional 13 or 26 peak hour traffic at that time, nor do we need it at the AM peak hour when the kids are going to school and people are exiting our subdivisions trying to get out onto County Road 44. This is the wrong time to have this project, and Linda's going to talk about why it's the wrong project for this area.
We think that it's also the wrong place. According to the mine permit application, quote, the areas surrounding the site are characterized by agricultural activities and wetlands, quote. However, if you look at Google Maps, you will see the prairie. Sure, it is rural over there, but look on the other side of Route 44 where we are. It's mid-Florida Lakes, over 1,000 units. Approximately 300 units in Wedgwood, 389. And then Harbor Shores was over 2,000 homes altogether within a mile of this project. Hardly, let's go back a picture. Back one more. The area surrounding the site is agricultural and wetlands. They completely ignore the other side, the south side of Route 44. So it's really the wrong place. It's not, we're just too close for the wind and water quality and traffic issues. Regarding air quality, and I'm only quoting the application, okay? And I think after hearing this last presentation, you might want to rewrite your application, because according to it, the piles of peat could be 40 to 70 feet tall. That's directly out of the application. It will be watered to 50% on the site before it is trucked away. Surrounding vegetation will be removed so there will be less windbreaks. Right now, one of the things that protects us from durstress sand are all the trees around there. But a lot of that's going to be cut down, and I guess the forestry department will be sending out staff pretty soon to evaluate the number of board feet in the trees out there and the vegetation that will be removed. So there will be less windbreaks. Peat does contain fungi, bacteria, tree pollen, rotting vegetation. And I don't know about you, but I'm very sensitive to all of this stuff, and that's why I run 3 air fresheners in my house all the time. And we have a lot of members in this park, a lot of residents who have respiratory problems, so that's not going to help. Peat weighs less than sand, and it will blow away easier. It will also smell like rotting vegetation when exposed to air, and in the application it says there's no odor because it's underwater, it's anaerobic, but when you bring it right out, it does smell. Now this, I'm sure, has been out of the water for quite some time, but when you take it right out, and it's still wet, it hasn't dewatered 50% yet, it is kind of having an odor. Peat is no longer in an anaerobic environment when it's stacked 70 feet high, where air will cause it to decompose and smell. This is from the muck farming, and by the way, the word muck is used interchangeably with peat in the state of Florida. Muck farming is very controversial because the drainage of wetlands destroys wildlife habitats, results in a variety of environmental problems. It's unlikely that any more will be created in the U.S. because of environmental regulations. It is prone to problems, such as the fact that it is very lightweight and usually windbreaks must be provided to keep it from blowing away when dry. And if you look at the soil map, you will see that this soil on this site is called Ocalaha muck. The groundwater quality, peat has acted like a sponge to absorb stormwater runoff, which contains nutrients and pesticides from adjoining citrus groves and a golf course that's been there at least 40 years, Wedgwood Golf Course. If it's disturbed, the nutrients and pesticides would be free to seep into the groundwater and the aquifer, which underneath all of this is limestone. And limestone is very porous, and so that the line between the superficial aquifer and the lower Floridian aquifer can have conduits and cracks through that limestone that can take these nutrients right down to the lower aquifer. Arsenic pesticides were used on citrus and golf courses and still are in some areas. And in southern Florida, there's over 300 municipal wells that are no longer usable because of our citrus industry and the arsenic compounds that don't break down. Some of the pesticides will over time, but the arsenic compounds, unfortunately, they're there for a long time. So we have literally hundreds of wells, municipal wells in Florida that are no longer usable because of our citrus industry. And this area is surrounded by citrus groves. Peat, I took this from Reliable Peat's website, and they're a mining company also in Leesburg, and it shows the ditching that they do. They rim ditch the entire mining area for water and contamination control. They remove the top layers of the overburden, which is stockpiled and then put back later. The mine, it could last 6 to 9 months ahead of the anticipated use. Let's go on. Another quote. Environmentalists rightly note that even reclaiming the land into a wetland alters the ecology of the area, puts some species at risk, and can never bring back the historic features of the bog. Not only is decolonization by the mine, native flora and fauna probably not going to happen, the complex water tables in adjacent undrained areas are also put under stress. And the last line of this from another website, mining for peat further affects local water quality and removes a distinct ecosystem. Let's keep going. This policy alone should be grounds for prohibiting this permit. and I won't go over it because we did that earlier. Will phase 2, which isn't being talked about 14, 17 years from now, be sand mining? One of the things you do before you sand mine is remove the peat and the vegetation first. Or will we have new lakefront property? Will local residents have access to the lake on privately owned land? Will new housing developments be built closer to the lake on the adjoining uplands? Where will all the water come from to fill up this beautiful, beautiful lake? We've had a drought for 10 years. We don't know if that's going to continue. Where are we going to get the water to fill up that lake? How deep will it be? And finally, connected to Lake Eustis, the applicant claims there's a berm between Goose Prairie and the Gator Hole. But Britt went out there and he could not find it. He looked, and there's nothing in the county planning rules, anything in the county records that says that there's any kind of berm between the lake and the Gator Hole. So I'd like to let our lawyer say a few words.
Thank you. Rick, I don't want to strangle you with the cord, but I think it may happen by accident. Don't take it personally. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, because if I stand there, I'm going to be light in my eyes. Exactly. Well, I have I guess I'm launching off the question portion, but these are pretty specific to what's already been presented. My first question, and I think this is extremely important, is a lot has been discussed about the ecology of the property, the hydrology, the water flow, the chemicals that are going to be released, the wildlife that's already there. The problem is we only have one study, and that's the applicant study. And actually, I should ask you, Rick, does the county have hydrologists or ecologists on staff who have looked over it?
Hydrologists on staff.
Okay.
Hydrologists that are on contract.
And have they gone out to the site yet?
The ecologists have.
Okay, and do we have a report from the ecologists, the county ecologists?
Part of the comments in the staff report and all were involved with it.
Okay, I'll reach out to you to get a copy of that. What we'd like to do, being that this is a 1,000-acre site, there's a lot of things going on with the ecology, the hydrology, the wildlife, the flora, the fauna. We'd like to have our own scientists go out. So would the applicant allow that prior to the Lake County BCC meeting?
First of all, you mind if I answer? You're going to have lots of time to deal with it because we've got Army Corps engineer permits, we've got St. John's permits.
Well, I appreciate that, and we will get to that, but my question is, prior to the BCC, will the applicant allow our scientists to go out to the property?
BCC is Thursday.
Tuesday, so it's a week. Will it be allowed? Why?
Because you'll have lots of time to work with it.
Well, we're just asking, we called earlier. We called in advance of tonight's meeting, and we got the runaround on someone coming out there, so we appreciate just a yes or no. If someone can come out this week, please tell us, we'll make the arrangements, and if no, just say no, but we need yes or no.
Well, you can tell me who you get in line, we'll sit down and meet with our.
Well, we have Scott Davis over here, and some of his colleagues would be the ones who would want to come out. No, that's not my question. I just need a yes or no. No, sir, we need to go out. We're asking if you'll allow us to or not. Just a yes or no question. Just a yes or no. That's all. I feel like you're dancing a little. He's a scientist.
Answer the question, yes or no?
This is a scientific basis, we have nothing to hide, but what I can do
No, I'm going to pass the microphone. If everyone's saying this is extremely important. Yes. So, please, we want to hear the answer because we need to know before BCC because we'll have to explain to the BCC whether we were allowed access to the property or if we weren't. So I would ask again, please hold your applause. We appreciate it, but please let the gentleman answer because we do need an answer to this question.
Like I say, first of all, these are leased properties from different individuals. We have to get their permission as well as everybody else. We're trying to do this in 1 week as opposed to doing this earlier, which we logically should have done. But the bottom line is, I'll be glad to sit down with your biologist. We'll talk to him. We'll make sure he's qualified. If that's the case, we'll certainly sit down with him. I have no idea, to be honest with you. A lot of people out there that pretend to be biologists that really aren't. So, no, I'm a lawyer. So what we'll do is, like I said, during this process, and this is a long process because we have lots of permitting, I'm sure there will be time for inspection.
All right, I think we'll explain to the BCC what happened tonight.
I've got to change. We're going to go to the question and answer period. I'm sure that during the question and answer period, we'll probably be picking right up on this again. Okay, it's obvious that there's going to be a disagreement. That's what the talking point is, right? It's the two sides disagreeing. I don't think we're going to see a solution to that tonight. What we want to do is get you the information, so let's proceed to that part of the meeting. Remember, the county representative and the proponent had 15 minutes. So far, we're into like 18 or 20 minutes here. So, I have a question for you. Do you want to continue on and get some more information, or don't you? No. The time is up. The time is up. Those are the rules. Okay? Each person will get 5 minutes to answer each one of these questions. And like I say, I'm sure that there'll probably be a continuation of the answers that you're looking for. Just be patient. Now, excuse me, because I've got to get the questions up on the screen. First question, and the way this works is, I'll refresh your memory on this. The way this will work is, I think this time what we'll do is we'll have the proponents on the hot seat. They'll get to address it. Well, the first person who gets to address it will be the county, always. Then we'll switch back and forth from one to the side to the other side for each question. And the way it'll work is I will read the question. The county representative will have 5 minutes to reply. And I've got my little clock running, okay? Just like I had before, reminding people how much time is left. I may be wasting time, but not as much as we were all wasting here. We wasted 4 minutes, okay? Let's keep going. Each person on each panel will have 5 minutes, if they wish, to address the question, starting with the county representative. First question, what are the health risks of breathing airborne peat dust and particulates as the peat is drying, and will a noxious odor be given off? Rick.
Well, first of all, I'm not qualified to make a health risk issue determination, but at this stage, this is the preliminary stage of the whole permitting process, as I had previously explained in my presentation. The ordinance says that they have to meet air quality standards in accordance with comprehensive plan and land development regulations. As they move forward through their permitting process and they're reviewed at the state and federal levels, and they come back to the county, those issues are all addressed in their operating plan as how they are following those conditions.
Okay, now the proponent side, who? Okay, Mr. Cook. 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Okay, so the question is air quality. I can speak to air quality as far as Florida Reed Sedge peat is concerned, which is the peat sample I have up here on the table. I cannot really give you any information on other forms of peat like sphagnum, which you'll probably find online if you go into peat harvesting. and search for that. However, you can see the material, you can smell the material. It's not likely to blow, it's pretty heavy. It's probably a 40-pound block or a sample. It actually comes out of the ground in about 3 foot by 3 foot by 3 feet chunks. And some of it does break up a little bit, but it's mostly large chunks. And as far as what goes into the air, I've never experienced it myself. We've been doing this for 33 years. I've not had people complain about peat dust. I have had people living near our facilities. And let's see what else. The application that was quoted a little bit earlier about the height of the piles and the concern of wind blowing them off, that actually is generic language from a sand mining operation. This is a peat operation. So that language has been amended by the county. The new language is available through the county. It's public information, and the piles aren't anywhere near 40 or 70 feet, I think it was. I think they're actually 20. And any of these things that we're talking about, a lot of them, there actually will be conditions on our actual permit as far as the height and the dust. Comments about, I guess, wetting down Durastresses road. You know, I really can't. I don't really have an in, if you will, with Durastress. I really can't attest most of any of that. I can tell you that that material represents 50% moisture. It actually came from a load that came from our Day City facility and was dropped off in Okahumpka, which is where all of this Goose Prairie peat, if it happens, will be going. So that is representative.
Steve, there was a question as far as what happens when you pile this onto a truck. Okay, here you go.
Well, I'm asking you a question that was asked. There was a question when you pile the peat onto a truck, does it squish it down to the point where the top stuff on the top dries out?
How can you answer that question when you couldn't answer the other one?
I think that the question was the weight. I guess the weight of the peat, does it cause it to squish down, if you will, and then dry out on the top? Well, you know, there is some material that's on the top, so I guess, you know, will the surface of it dry? It is tarped. A lot of our trucks do have the regular DOT tarps. So, no, I haven't experienced any kind of raw peat drying and blowing off of trucks. Let's see, anything else I didn't cover? As far as air quality, the area around the perimeter of the property, where all the forested buffer is, that stays intact. If you'll look at the new maps here, this forested buffer area actually stays. We're not taking that out, so we're not creating a corridor, if you will, for dust or odor transmission. Like I said, there's a lot of studies done on sphagnum peat, but I'm not aware of any that have been done on Florida peat as far as peat dust or particulates or noxious odors. And the only reason I can surmise for that is because in the 33 years I've been doing it, we haven't had any complaints about it. Anybody else?
Submit in 20 seconds.
Got my answer, 20 seconds. I guess we'll move on then.
Okay.
How about fire?
Reach.
Yeah, I think it should. No, I might have to switch it. Is it, I can move it, but that's not.
I'll just set it right here.
Whatever works for you.
Our answer on the air quality thing as far as the dust and so forth. On October 31st of 2012, the Lake County Planning and Zoning Board meeting, Reliable Peat Company, one of your competitors in the county or the area, was there to have their on their agenda a issue with Pine Meadows Peat Mine. And Mr. Reiner, I assume the owner of that company, made a statement to the board that all of their equipment is mufflered, and they also put in a containment area as a noise barrier with a berm and around a pump. He added that they use a tank truck that is pulled with a tractor that sprays water for dust control on the access road. He also assured the board that peat does not have much smell. So our question, or we're wondering, if there is no dust from your peat, how does Jack Reiner have dust from his peat? And why is there a tank truck to spray things down? We went on Reliable Peat Company's website, and it shows a loader dumping peat into a dump truck, and there is dust pluming up above the truck. So I'm assuming if you're both mining the same kind of peat in this state, that when you take it out of the ground and it dries 50%, it's going to be the same consistency as Jack Reiner's.
It's not in the rule. It was on the slide.
I thought each one of us had 5
You can chat 5 minutes, but you can't share.
minutes. Where can I have my 5 minutes?
You will.
They just shared time.
Well, then, hold on. Okay, are we ready to go back over here? Basically what I said was no sharing of time. In other words, one speaker gets to use as much of the 5 minutes as that one speaker gets. No help from anybody else, like you did. Okay? Next. Is there anybody else who wants to address the area?
Yeah, I did want to address one thing. We did talk about the fires, and I think that's important. Someone mentioned that before. The idea of smoke, that is an air quality issue that I should probably address. If you have peat fires, you have smoke, and you have bad air quality. One of the things that's so important about the fact we're now harvesting this peat out is that we'll remove the peat, we'll remove the fire danger for peat fires, which, as you know, are very difficult to deal with. Continue to burn if there's no one there. We will have equipment prepared in case there's ever any issues, but we'll be taking the peat out. So from an air quality standpoint, we believe this is an advantage to air quality as time goes on. Again, Florida peat, I don't know what Reliable Peat's issue is. I don't know if they dried it out all the way. We are mandated, we have a condition that we must keep this moist as a condition of our permit. We must keep it just like this, which is 50%, to make sure there will be no dust. So I don't know what a Reliable's permit was, our permit will require.
Anybody else?
Are we still on air quality? Okay. All right. At the risk of losing the microphone, I have questions. I want to get information out to us, so that's why I keep asking questions. My understanding is that either the county or the applicant own any type of air quality monitoring equipment. Is that correct? Or does Lake County or the applicant own such equipment?
I don't know what the county has for air quality equipment. Planning doesn't monitor air quality.
Okay, because in the staff report, there's a concept, or in the application, I apologize if I don't remember which document, there's an idea presented that the air quality will be monitored. But if there's no equipment to do so, I'm not sure if that's going to actually be something that occurs in the future. So then my question to the applicant is, do you all have air monitoring equipment? Or how is the air quality going to be monitored, and what's the baseline? And when will that baseline be presented? Will it be presented to the BCC?
Well, no, there's somebody that's going to
If we're trying to get information. That's my goal for the audience, is to get information. I'm trying to follow the rules too, but I'm trying to get information.
We can't get the mic. I mean, just do your questions a little, and then I'll address it.
Those are 2 questions related to air quality. Do you have a machine? Oh, I guess 3. Do you have a machine? And if not, are you going to purchase one in advance of the conditional use permit? And 2, do you have a baseline number for the air quality at this point? And if not, will you get one prior to the Lake County hearing?
Yeah, if we could get those answered, it'd be great.
You can, 2 of you have 5 minutes. You can use it any way you want to. You can answer a question.
Okay, we're still learning the rules, obviously, on both sides here. To answer the specific questions, does anyone have air quality monitoring? I do not know about the county or their environmental department. I know the county does have an environmental department, but as far as the applicant, he does not have the equipment. We would hire a third party that specializes in air quality monitoring to perform that duty for us. Will we purchase one? No. Again, the answer is we will hire a third party that's experts in air quality monitoring to perform that duty. As far as the baseline, we will not have that done before the Board of County Commission meeting next Tuesday. That will be part of our DEP permitting that was mentioned earlier, and with the DEP specific permit will include air quality report, monitoring, and baseline. This application is just, can we move forward? There's a lot of expense in doing the studies, and so a lot of this stuff is not going to happen before the Board of County Commission meeting. If you do these studies, you're spending a lot of money, and if the Board of County Commission turns the application down, you just waste a lot of money. So the first step in the process is getting through the conditional use permit. If the county does approve us to move forward, then we will be moving forward with air quality studies, get the baseline background, and submitting that to the agencies for permitting, and there will be a record, and it will be on file, and all that goes back to the county. That's simple. To address the only thing I don't know the specific other, what was it, Pine Meadows, Peat. I don't know the specifics of their operation, but just like any construction activity, you're not on a paved road. There will be dust from any dirt road, lime rock road, whatever. Typically, that is the reason for the water trucks. The peat, as you can see, and again, we don't know what the other company does and how they transport and how much they dry theirs out. Steve's protocol is 50%. It is very moist, very dense, big clumps, and I've been to his operations, and there's not dust coming off of those trucks. When you go down the dirt road, 2 minutes, when you go down the dirt road, clearly there is dust from the dirt road. That's just normal, you go down any dirt road. Orange Grove Road, Clay Road, it doesn't matter, you're going to create dust. The requirement in the permit will be to continually keep that road watered to eliminate the dust as they're going down those roads. So hopefully that does answer those questions, and I'll not use my 5 minutes.
We have two people that haven't replied. Linda?
As a member of the Board of Directors of the Lake County Water Authority, I know that there's a weather station at Burrell Lock and Dam. That's the only one I know of in this part of the county. And the only air quality they monitor is ozone.
Okay, we're on to the next question. Wow, we got one down. Okay, this is on water. Water was use and quality. What will be the impact to wildlife and the aquifer? And for this, the proponents went first last time, so the opponents get to go first. Whoever wants to speak. 5 minutes.
I'll go ahead and start, but I won't take 5 minutes. I think that's an excellent question. The problem is it goes back to what was discussed before, and not to reopen that can of worms, but the opponents can't answer the question. Because we haven't got any of our own people to go out on the property and see what's there. Now, we suspect that there's indigo snakes, there's gopher tortoises, there's sand skinks, there's some threatened and endangered plant life. We suspect all of that. But this is 1,000 acres. There could be a whole lot hiding out there that's going to be destroyed that we don't know about. I think there's some things, I'm of course a lawyer, which sometimes I let people know that, sometimes I don't, but I'm not an expert. But in talking to some experts and having done this before, I can tell you this: you're scraping off the entire surface of the land. Anything that lives there is going, any plant that lives there, it's gone. It's dead. There's a very vague offer in the application that they will try to preserve saplings to replant. But the county right now is not making that mandatory. There is also a condition in the application that there will be a tree survey. But again, we don't have it. I don't know if it's an expense issue. I think the applicant stands to make quite a bit of money off this peat mine.
Yes.
Stands to possibly reduce a lot of other people's property values, but doesn't want to go through the expense of doing the tree survey and then having that tree plan locked down. When we go to BCC, my recommendation is going to be we need the tree survey in place. We need all the trees over a certain size, and we can all talk about what that should be, preserved, not even cut, and then we need it set in stone that saplings of a certain size are going to be maintained in the nursery and are going to be replanted. But even with that, I think what the scientists are going to tell you, and I lied, I probably am going to go 5 minutes, I'm on a roll now. Michael cut me off. I got 3 minutes.
Hardly any use.
When you, not only are you scraping the land, actually you're scraping more than the top layer of land. Peat that's accumulated over hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of years. The animals that live there, the application says don't worry about them. Threatened, endangered or not, don't worry about them. They'll just move. But you all don't want to live next to the peat mine in your nice, secure houses. What do you think the animals are going to do? Some of them are not going to survive the fumes, the noise, the vibrations, the loss of their homes. And the ones that do, maybe they will relocate. I don't know, but that's part of why we want to get our experts out to the property. And I really hope that when it comes to BCC, you all will revoice those concerns. I hope you'll tell your commissioners, listen, we don't know enough. We have one study that was done by the applicant telling us that everything's okay and that they may or may not preserve trees and they may or may not have endangered species and they may or may not continue to live there. But we'd like our own people to get out there and then we'd like it certain, not vague, not unknown. We want certainty. What is out there? Will it survive? How will it be preserved? So please, when you get to the meeting, keep driving that home. We don't know what's going on yet. We need the tree study. We need the noise study. We need our own experts to go out to the property and tell us what's there. Thank you.
I guess it's my turn. Thanks. There's definitely a lot covered in that question, and I don't know that I can answer it all, but I can tell you that our firm has been evaluating the ecological conditions on that particular site since 2009. And we're not saying ignore the wildlife. We're saying just the contrary. We've done an uncountable number of surveys and assessments from the times that we've been out there, and the answer is we found no listed species out there. There is wildlife, but there are no listed species that we have found that occupies the area associated with the harvest. The sand skinks that she mentions, the gopher tortoises, and indigo snakes are all upland species. And ecologists would know this and appreciate recognizing that you're not an ecologist. Those animals do not occupy the wetland areas, the areas associated with the peat that we're pulling out of the ground, okay? You don't have gopher tortoises living in wetlands, you don't have sand skinks, you don't have indigo snakes. They might be in the areas adjacent around in the uplands, outside of the area, but that's not where we're mining, and that's not what is being disturbed associated with the operation. In addition to that, as part of moving forward with this process, not only do we have to get permits through the state DEP and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, we also have to pass muster with the State Game and Fish Commission and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. They will review the applications that we submit, they will review the studies, and they also conduct independent site reviews to verify the information. The evaluation of wildlife, because they move around, and we all know this, they're not static like us, they move around. This is constantly and continually evaluated over the course of the operation. So in the event that we did run into or find something that was occupying the site, we stop and we address it, we permit it, and we handle it legally. Indigo snakes do use wetland areas, and part of the conditions of our conditional use permit and part of the conditions of our state work permit will be that we follow the federal guidelines associated with indigo snakes. And they're pretty simple. If you see one, you let it be. You make sure that it stays on site and you do not harm it. So we feel like we spent a lot of time evaluating the wildlife on site. We know what's out there. There are not listed species that have been missed. And we will continue to evaluate for the occurrence of wildlife on the site through the duration of the operation. You all also saw pictures of the after at Halochi and the Tuscaloosa sites in the presentation. 2 minutes, and recognize that these areas went from an area that was essentially upland to open water with a diverse habitat that is now home to salmon cranes. I think we have a whooping crane documented in one of the potential properties. Lots of wildlife habitat that previously was not there. And we expect the very, very same to happen here. An area where we don't have eagles, we don't have ospreys, we don't have wildlife living or using this area because the habitat's not suitable for them. But when we're done, when this area is restored, the wildlife diversity will be very extensive, and you'll have something to look at and something to enjoy.
Or your report, or these reports.
Our reports are part of the record. They were submitted as part of the application. Yes, ma'am, they are.
We haven't seen them.
They're part of the public record. And they're part of the public record the county has them.
How many of you got this in the mail today? This big mailer from CNCP. You notice on the back page, top paragraph, it says, an aerial survey was done on the Goose Prairie property to assess the types of birds and other wildlife present. Gee, I wonder how much you can see from an aerial survey. That's pretty dangerous flying going down into a valley like that, real close to the bottom where the peat is. I hope it was a helicopter and not a regular plane. I think we would all prefer if there were boots on the ground and not an aerial survey. Also, the county application said that, I don't know that they actually sent somebody in to look for anything, but they have a standard format that they follow. They know there are bears in there, and you know they give an argument in the application as to the bears will be moving around, and they can move away from where the mining is. And then they talk about the upland species that were just mentioned. But we really need boots on the ground to go in there and see what's there. As for Halakuchi, I was just at Halakuchi last month, and I was a little upset because all the pitcher plants and the sundews and the other wetland vegetation wasn't there anymore. And they're kind of rare nowadays. And I just wondered if any of those rare plants were relocated before all that beautiful wetland was dug up. And finally, Dr. Lawrence Pateau, Assistant Director, the Division of Environmental Sciences for the St. John's Water Management District, wrote a wonderful piece in the Orlando Sentinel paper several years back. I have a copy of it I was going to show you tonight, but I didn't have time. And he talks about the importance of peat bogs and how we should save every one of them we can in the state of Florida, because they're so important to our subtropical climate. And he was near the top of St. John's. It's a good thing they don't have to give you a permit. Because I talked to them last Monday, and St. John said they don't do permits for peat mines. Because I don't know that Mr. Bateau would have approved that permit.
Okay, a lot of questions in a little time. As far as the Water Management District and their permits, both the Water Management District and DEP follow the same criteria, the same guidelines, if you will. St. John's Water Management District does issue permits anytime you move water. And so that is applicable to our site because we move from one 20-acre cell to the other 20-acre cell. So they do permits. The DEP will be the ones doing all the environmental permits for wetland impacts and such. Survey. We did indeed have boots on the ground. That little synopsis was not the complete study, of course, that you received in the mail. We did indeed do a flyover. We used a helicopter at very low altitude as a two-person helicopter, kind of scary, and flew over the site. And the main reason we used a chopper then was to be sure that we could get 100% of the area. We would actually see it. We could take photographs, take aerial photographs, high-resolution photographs of it. And also, if there's a nesting sandhill crane, it's much easier to see from the air because it's a very large nest. So we flew over to see if there were any nesting sandhill cranes, and there were none. They were absent. We've actually been doing these studies since 2009, so we have a series or a history of wildlife. We've of course do these studies on the wetland, the wildlife, the vegetation, and also the hydrology. Let's see. The plants on the surface. When we start a 20-acre cell, we take the top 6 inches and we push it off to the side, and that is actually part of the material we use for our berms. That material then, with its seeds and rhizomes and plant tissues and stuff, is what is used to adjust the final slopes for the reclamation process, so that we have, a viable source for those plants. In the event, after monitoring, that we don't have those plants emerge, then we have to buy them and plant them, according to the DEP permits, according to the density and the areas that they give us. There's a clarification that material, some people might call it overburden. We refer to it really as a resource because it is what's used to jumpstart the reclamation process, since there are little seedlings and stuff in there. And we do keep those berms hydrated so that those rhizomes remain viable. I think I got it all. Doing that long pass, we'll keep time going.
I think we're missing the point here tonight. In the county comp plan, there is a policy that talks about just Goose Prairie. And I'm going to read it to you. And it's on page 211 of the comp plan, and it's policy 3-3.1.2. And it's titled Goose Prairie Area. And it says, the county shall preserve the integrity of the wetlands and water bodies on Goose Prairie as an intact ecosystem. Intact. Of county significance by protecting the natural resources, and we heard that peat was a natural resource, including but not limited to hydraulic regimes, wetland and upland communities, floodplain, ecologic connectivity, wildlife, and aquifer recharge. This is in the county's plan, and how this application ever got this far is news to me. It's essentially going against their own comp plan, and I don't know what your definition of intact is, but to me, intact is undisturbed, don't touch, no changes, and I don't care if you're harvesting 6 inches or if you're excavating 20 feet. That's disturbing an intact community, and we should not even consider anything. Had the county done their job years ago when that berm along 44 was installed for the poles, for the power poles, that berm cut off water flow between Lake Eustis, Gator Hole, under 44, where there are culverts. Culverts were not extended beyond the berm, and therefore that's why the degradation of Goose Prairie exists today. It's not because it's degrading on its own, it's that it hasn't had that back and flow water that it had for years, back in 41, 43. But when that berm was constructed along 44, that was the start of the demise of Goose Prairie. So we should be going to our county commission and asking them to extend those culverts, get that flow back into Goose Prairie, and let's keep Goose Prairie as an intact ecological community.
Well, do you want to give up your comment? If you want to give up your comment, it's fine.
First of all, the impact of wildlife on the aquifer. This is very important. This is why we're doing this, because this actually creates the habitat that was here in 1941, as you just saw. That habitat is critical. The impact of wildlife is positive, and the impact of the habitat is positive. This is what St. John's Water Management is doing right now. They have sent an RFP for an area they own to try and get peat mining to restore a habitat. St. John's Water Management District. That's because this is the only way you can restore these habitats now. And so what we're trying to do is just that. The state has no money for it. The county has no money for it. You know, we're not going to use the taxpayers. But this is absolutely critical for creation of habitat. And this is why we're doing this. This is one of the reasons why we're doing this. It is a win-win because it allows for economic use at the same time it allows for the reconstruction of the habitat area. And if we allow this to maintain the way it's been doing, you saw what's happened between 1941 and now. This wet prairie, what was formerly a wetland, what was formerly a bird sanctuary and lakefront area, will continue to fill to the point where it will be choked with weeds and there will be nothing left from a habitat standpoint. That's exactly why we're doing this.
Okay, so now the county representative, he's going to accept the challenge.
The particular policy that's mentioned there pertaining to the prohibition of mining in environmentally sensitive areas was addressed in my presentation in fairly well detail. But I'll move forward to the Goose Prairie policy, and one of the reasons, and you can go to the adoption minutes when the board adopted the 2030 plan, they wanted that policy placed in there, and they didn't give the exact wording of it at that point at the meeting. What their intent was is they knew there was the potential that mining could happen in this area. They wanted additional scrutiny involved with this because it is recognized as an area that the board felt is essential to Lake County. Part of the peat mining process, if you want to call it that, is the reclamation process. And when that reclamation process is completed, you now have a pristine biodiverse ecosystem. Something that you don't have out there right now. If you go through the environmentalist reports that were part of the application, it even recognizes the fact that there was a wood stork rookery not 6 miles from there over on Lake Yale. That rookery, according to U.S. Fish and Wildlife, has been inactive for over 10 years because there's no habitat to support them raising their young. Part of this restoration project, when it is completed, will actually provide potential rookeries for birds such as the wood ibis. So that right in itself is a win situation when you're capable of doing this. So when the board was saying, we want to be careful about this, we want to look at it as an intact system, when this was all wrote into the policy, it was looking at it from a viewpoint of protection means oversight and overview of any activities that would be involved with that wetland system.
I'm sorry, but we're done with that question. Everybody's had an opportunity to reply. Question number 2 with respect to water. How much water will be taken from the aquifer and for how long a period of time? Do you want to?
I'm not a hydrologist, I wouldn't touch that with a
Let's see. Who went first the last time? They went first? Okay, the proponent side gets to address this issue first.
I'm going to wait till you start the timer.
Don't want to give you any extra time. Okay, go.
Okay. The question, how much water are we taking from the aquifer? As far as the Florida aquifer, there will be none taken from the Florida aquifer. The wetlands in this area, in most part of central Florida, are supported by hard pan clay layers. That's why the water table is higher. The piezometric pressure of the aquifer in this area is about elevation 62. A lot of people think that we have a lot of spring-fed lakes that are really not spring-fed. You just have cold zones when you go down. You get shallow, off of these hills, you get the shallow aquifer running down the hill on that hard pan layer, and then weeping up to the sides and sometimes to the bottom. It looks like a spring, but it's just the shallow groundwater weeping out of the hill is what that is. We have areas like over at Christian Bible School where it just sweeps out of the hill and runs in a ditch and then hits an area of sand and goes back in the ground. I could take you to probably 3 or 4 of those situations. Reningers, there's one behind Reningers the same way, where it just follows that hard pan. This is a very similar situation. It's a hard pan underlying there. The ground is above Lake Eustis. You're not going to, even if you put culverts across here, you're not going to get water moving back and forth because the ground is higher than what the water table is in Lake Eustis. So as far as the aquifer goes, we're not removing any water from the aquifer. And what you got to remember too is, out of the 1,000-acre leased area or whatever, a little over 1,000 acres, the mine application is for roughly 320, 330 acres. We're looking at 20 acres at a time. So you're going to have 20 acres disturbed, which is 2%. You're going to have, after you finish that 20 acres, you move to the next 20 acres. It's 2%. So now you have 4%. We're restoring 2%, and then we're excavating 2%. Before we move to the next one, you're going to be restoring the next one. So you're going to, as you move on, you're only impacting about 2% of the land at a time. Because after you restore it, obviously we don't want to destroy it again. We just spent a lot of money restoring it. So we're impacting 2% at a time. That's partly why it takes so long, is because you're trying to leave a low impact footprint and not causing harm to the animals and the aquifer. Well, you're not trying to do anything to the aquifer. It's not a recharge area. And also the dewatering activity, we're just dewatering enough to extract the peat there. So it's not like we're going 100-foot deep. It's not a sand mine. It's not a lime rock quarry. We're not dewatering really deep. And so we're just dewatering enough to get that peat to a point of moisture content where we can handle it and pull it out without it being heavy on the trucks and over wet and not too dry. So there's no impact on that. I think that pretty much answers that question. And it's not that other question had to do with recharge area. As you saw from the earlier slides, this is not a recharge area. It's muck, it's type D soils. We have recharge on type A soils. Most of the orange groves around here, orange groves like ball-bearing sandy soils, type A soils, berry sands. That's our recharge areas. East of town, the Wakata area, high recharge area. As you come around the chain of lakes, we really don't have much recharge. All of this is subsurface seepage to wetlands and to our lakes. And basically we're removing just the peat, and it doesn't have an impact on water flow, water quality, or the aquifer.
Let me repeat the question just so we know where we are. It's on question number 2, how much water will be taken from the aquifer for how long a period of time? Okay.
I think, and this may be violating the rules, I'm asking a question, I'm not sure if we got just the number. Did you tell us just what the number was per gallons per day?
Nope.
We will not be taking any water from the Floridian aquifer.
Oh, it was just the Florida, I apologize. Okay, I apologize, I was on a different question. We actually obviously can't answer that particular question, but one thing we did want to note is that in the application, the applicant has noted that there's several permits pending, FDP, St. John's, Army Corps, I'm not sure if there's more than that. So we were trying to get a little clarification because some of the folks from Protect Goose Prairie have contacted those agencies and they've been told no permits are pending. So we were a little confused on what's going on as far as the state and federal permitting, and maybe this isn't the right place to bring it up, but the application says they're all pending. The agencies say they haven't received anything. We've heard tonight it's going to be done after the conditional use permits. We're just trying to figure out when will we know, or I guess the question is, are those applications pending? Are those permit applications pending already?
First of all, the permits typically are after zoning. After you have your zoning, then you can make your application for environmental permits. And that's an environmental permitting process. Anybody who has standing, or anybody who requests, will receive notice of anything submitted regarding those permits. And we want that to happen. We, again, will be told.
Well, that's 4 employees, and then it says 2 guys at the site helping to load each truck. So that might be 6 at the most. I don't know where you get 14 or 15 out of that, but that's up to you guys.
That's a total number.
Finally, Route 44, I think we pointed out the condition of that road, 111% capacity right now, up to 170%, 17% if we add more Peat trucks. That's still a big concern considering it's rated a D and on the verge of failure. And we started this program, our program, by saying, remember the title slide? The wrong time, the wrong place.
Okay, I'd like to thank you all for coming. I hope that it's been an enlightening experience for everybody.